At this point in time, we should have already completed number 1. That's 3 divided by 1/3. We said that 3 divided by 1/3 means how many groups of 1/3 are there in 3. So I have that written here because I'm writing what the problem means. We should have modeled it as follows. We should have gotten 3 holes. So if each of these hexagons are representing 1, then it takes 3 of them to make 3. So there's 1, 2, and 3. And then we want to know how many groups of 1/3 there are. So I have my 3 here. I want you to go ahead and pause the video, and if you can, go ahead and try to do this problem by yourself. First of all, of course, what am I going to substitute my holes for? What shape am I going to switch them out with? After you've finished making the exchange, and I'll give you a hint right now. If you do not want the hint, go ahead and pause the video, work it out yourself. But my hint is that I will be exchanging them for my blue rhombuses. My blue rhombuses do represent my 1/3 because it takes 3 rhombuses to make 1. So that is 1/3. So let me go ahead and make these into 1/3. So if I make these all into 1/3, I'm going to do that right now. Do this with me as you're watching the video. If you are watching the video, I do expect you to go through every step with me. So you should have 3 hexagons in front of you, and you should be replacing the hexagons with your rhombuses, which are representing 1/3. So if you haven't done this already, go ahead and pause the video and do this with me. From this point, we're going to go ahead and make groups of 1/3. At this point, I would like you to pause the video, try to make groups of 1/3 by yourself. I will give you 3 seconds to pause the video. Pause it in 3, 2, 1. Alright, we're going to go back and I'm going to work it out with you. Of course, you should have already made the groups of 1/3 on your own. This is just you double checking your answer. I still want you to redo the steps with me as you watch me go through them. Well, 1 rhombus is 1/3 of my whole, since my hexagon is my whole. So here's 1 group of 1/3, here's 2 groups of 1/3, 3 groups of 1/3, 4 groups of 1/3, 5 groups of 1/3, 6 groups of 1/3, 7 groups of 1/3, 8 groups of 1/3, and 9 groups of 1/3. So I made a fair trade, my hexagons for my rhombuses. So I still have 3, but whenever I divide my 3 into 1/3, I am going to get, now we're going to go ahead and move on to our second problem. Our second problem is 2 divided by 2/3, which means, and if you want to pause the video and go ahead and write what it means for yourself, then you absolutely may. Or if you'd like to follow along with me, then you also may. So I'm going to say that 2 divided by 2/3 means how many groups of 2/3 are there in 2. So this is what my question means. How many groups of 2/3 are there in 2? So at this point in time, I do want you guys to go ahead and try to model the problem yourself. We're starting off with 2. So which shape would we use to represent 1? And then we'll use 2 of those to make 2. I'll go ahead and give you a moment if you want to pause the video to work out this problem in 3, 2, 1. So the first thing I need to do is get 2. So here's 1, here's 2. Then I need to recognize that I'm trying to make groups of 2/3. Well, it's going to be a lot easier to make groups of 2/3 if I put everything in terms of thirds. So I want you to go ahead and think about which block you would choose. Go ahead and pause the video. If you can make the exchange yourself, then go ahead. If not, then you can keep playing the video. So I'm going to exchange 3/3 for 1, which makes sense because 3/3 will give me 1 whole. And then I'm going to exchange my other whole for 3/3. So now I still have 2. I can lay them on top and see that this is still 1, and this is still 1. 1 and 1 makes 2. So now I still have 2. but I also have thirds. So I can go ahead and make groups of 2/3. So you go ahead and try to make groups of 2/3. Pause the video if you need to. In order to do that, whenever you're ready, you can hit play. Here is my first group of 2/3. Here is my second group of 2/3. And here is my third group of 2/3. So as you can see here, I have 1, 2, 3 groups of 2/3. So to answer my question, how many groups of 2/3 are there in 2? There are 3. There are 3 groups of 2/3 in 2. And so I'll just reconstruct these one more time so you can see. We had 2, and then we grouped them into groups of 2/3. I highly encourage you to stop the video whenever you can to try and do the problem yourself. So here we have 2 divided by 1/6 means. So I want you to try to answer that by yourself, what you think it means. And now we'll go ahead and do it together so you can double check your answer. I believe that it means how many groups of 1/6 are there in 2. So we're going to start off like how we did the last problem. I'm going to start with, see if you can do this by yourself. Guess what I'm going to start off with? I'm going to start off with not 1, but 2 hexagons. So this is representing my 2. Oh, my 2 right there. And now we're going to try to see how many groups of 1/6 are there in 2. Well, if we're going to see groups of 1/6, then I should probably exchange my 1s for 1/6. So at this time, I want you to try on your own to go ahead and find the shape that we're going to substitute so that we can change our wholes into 6. So my 6 looks like this. We may have discussed this earlier in class. So I'm going to go ahead and make my fair trade. So there's 1/6, 2/6, 3/6. It will take 6/6 to make one whole. So 4/6, 5/6. There are 6/6 right there. And then 1/6, 2/6, 3/6, 4/6, 5/6, and finally 6/6. So you can see how 6/6 make one whole. I'm going to go ahead and do my final exchange. I'm going to leave those here. Take away my hexagon. Leave these here. These are my triangles replacing my hexagon. My triangles are representing 6. So, I still have 2. Oh, yes, I still have 2. They're already divided into 6, so I want to know how many groups of 1/6 are there in 2. At this point in time, if you already know how many groups of 1/6 there are in 2, do not wait for me. Go ahead and write your answer, and then let's double check it together. Well, I can just count up how many 1/6 I have. Here's 1 group of 1/6, 2 groups of 1/6, 3 groups of 1/6, 4 groups, 5 groups, 6 groups, 7 groups, 8 groups, 9 groups, 10 groups, 11 groups, and 12 groups. So as you can see, we have 12 groups of 1/6 in 2 wholes. I'll put these back together so you can see one more time. There's 1 hole, and here are 2 holes. Okay, it's not perfect, but there we go. Pretty close. So you can see how there are 12 groups of 1/6 inside 2 holes. For this next problem, we're going to write what this means. So we have 3 divided by 1/2 means. Please pause the video and write what you think it will be. It'll start off with how many groups. I'm going to go ahead and start writing in 3, 2, 1. I'm going to say how many groups of 1/2 are there in 3? Alright, so first I'll start off with 3. So here's 1, 2, 3. At this point, we should be very good at modeling our whole number. So I do expect you to be able to model the whole number on your own. Let me put these up a little bit so we can still see the problem. We're dividing by 1/2. So we're looking for groups of 1/2. If I'm looking for groups of 1/2, what shape do you think I'm going to use? If you said the trapezoid, then you are correct. The trapezoid is exactly 1/2 of my whole. So I should have 3 sets of trapezoids. If you haven't modeled this already, go ahead and pause the video and model it for yourself. I'm going to take away my hexagons because I've already made my fair trade. So now I can see how many groups of 1/2 are there in 3. So this is just the same as the one that we did before with 1/6. I already have these divided into 1/2, so here's 1/2, 2 halves, 3 halves, 4 halves, 5 halves, 6 halves. So there are 6 halves in 3. Alright. For this next problem, we're going to have 3 again. So go ahead and model the 3 for me. Pause the video if you need to. I'm going to model it as 1, 2, 3, but actually I'm getting a little ahead of myself. First, we need to know what this means. 3 divided by 3/6 means, so let's think about what that means. That means, go ahead and pause the video if you already know it and write it yourself. I'm going to write how many groups of 3/6 are there in 3. So now what I've got to do is I've got to take my 6 and make my equal exchanges. So now see if you can remember which shape were my 6s, and go ahead and try to make the exchange yourself. Pause the video if needed. I'm going to go ahead and make my exchange right now. I have 1/6, or not 1/6, I have 6/6 to substitute for that one, 6/6 to substitute for my second whole. And finally, I have these last 6/6 to substitute for my last whole. So as you can see here, we still have 3 hexagons. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of my yellow hexagons because I've made a fair trade. There's 1 hexagon. There's 2 hexagons. Let me put this back together. And here are 3 hexagons. I'm going to take these, move them away. So we can see here that I still have 3. So there's 1, 2, 3. We're dividing them into groups of 3/6. So as usual, before I count out the 3/6 myself, I would like you to attempt to count out the groups of 3/6 on your own. Once you are finished, you may watch the rest of the video, but I do want to see you counting out 3/6, groups of 3/6 from our 3. So I'm going to count out 1, 2, 3, 6. There's 1 group of 3/6. 1, 2, 3, 6. Well, that's convenient. There's another group of 3/6. 1, 2, 3. There's another 3/6. 1, 2, 3. That's another group of 3/6. Try to divide out this last one on your own. I think we've noticed a pattern. 1, 2, 3. That's 3/6. And 1, 2, 3. That is 3/6. So whenever it asks how many groups of 3, 6 are there in 3, we can count them up. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 groups of 3, 6 in 3. So, some of you may have noticed that this looks a lot like one of my other shapes. Could I make another fair trade if I wanted? And if I wanted to make a fair trade of 3, 6 for a shape, which shape would I choose? If you said the trapezoid, you are correct. Which means that how many groups of 3, 6 are there in 3 is the same as how many groups of 1/2 are there in 3. Well, if you guys remember how to simplify fractions, I'll show you right here. 3, 6 can be simplified by 3 over 3. 3 divided by 3 is 1. 6 divided by 3 is 2. So 3 divided by 3, 6 is the same as 3 divided by 1/2. So if I wanted to, then I could have substituted, just like we just did. I could have substituted my 3 wholes for halves, and I could have done what we just did. 3 divided by 1/2 is the same as 3 divided by 3, 6. And if we look, we got the exact same answer, you guys. That's because 1/2 and 3, 6 are equivalent fractions. So it makes sense that we got the same answer. Just to really drive that point home, we can count them up again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There are 6 groups of 1/2 in 3, just like how there are, let me put them on top. So this was my whole, but I divided it into groups of 3, 6. So see how my 3, 6 are equal to my 1/2. 3, 6 are equal to 1/2. So whenever I say I have 6 groups of 3, 6, I also have So whenever I say that I have 6 groups of 3, 6, I also have 6 groups of 1/2. Now for my next problem, I have 2 divided by 4, 6. Go ahead and take a moment, try to write out our question. Pause the video. Alright, we have how many groups, because we're always going to start with that, how many groups of 4, 6 are in 2. I'm going to go ahead, you try to model 2. You should have had 1, 2 hexagons. And now what do you think we're going to break these into? What shape? If you said the green triangles, then you are correct. So here's 1. And here's 2. So I'm going to make my fair trade. I'm going to trade my 2 wholes for 6, 6. So there's 1 for 6, 6. And then there's 2 for 6, 6. So I still have 1 whole and 1 whole. That still makes 2. And now I want to group these because it says how many groups of 4, 6 are in 2. So I want to group these into groups of 4, 6. Well, how many triangles does it take to make a group of 4, 6? Alright, if you said 4, you're correct. So I'm going to take away 2, so there's 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's one group of 4, 6. This isn't a group of 4, 6 yet. I need 2 more from this one to make it a group of 4, 6. So I can do it like that. Alright, so there's a second group of 4, 6. And then if I count here 1, 2, 3, 4, well, that's already grouped into a group of 4, 6. So I'm going to go ahead and move these here so that we can see them. So I can see clearly here 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. I have groups of 4, 6 because each of these is a 6. Remember that our denominator is the type and our numerator is the amount, the how many. So, how many groups of 4, 6 do I have? I have 1, 2, 3. So, whenever I'm asked the question of how many groups of 4, 6 are in 2, the answer is 3. There are 3 groups of 4, 6 in 2. I want you to pause the video and attempt this problem by yourself. It is a little more challenging. You will start off with 5 holes, of course. But I think it'd be good if you can do this one by yourself. So I will give you a few moments. Go ahead and pause the video. Attempt the problem. Alright, so looking at this problem together, hopefully you've already finished, and you should not be watching this unless you have at least attempted this problem. We have 5 divided by 5, 6. So you should have written how many groups of 5, 6 are there in 5? So how many groups of 5, 6 are there in 5? So I have to start with 5, of course. So I have 1, 2, 3. And even if you've already done this, I want you to do it over with me again. A lot of practice makes you better at math. So we have holes. We can't really see them. I don't want to cover up my words, but there we go. Now we can see them in the frame. Alright, since we're trying to make groups of 5, 6, which tile do you think I'm going to switch out these pattern blocks with? If you said the green triangle, you are correct. Those are my 6. It takes 6 green triangles to make 1 hole. So I am going to switch out 6 green triangles for every 1 yellow hexagon. I'm taking my yellow hexagons, moving them elsewhere, replacing them with my triangles. I know that this will take a bit of time. Pause the video if you need to, so that you can go ahead and switch out your pieces. I do want to see you following along. Last one. Alright, as you can see, I do have 5 holes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, because I did say my hexagon represents 1, so this is 5 right here. I'm trying to make groups of 5, 6, so I'm going to count them out, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so there's one group of 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's another group of 5, 6. So again, you should be pausing the video and attempting this, or you should have already attempted this one by yourself. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There goes another group of 5, 6. So I have these 3 left over so far, and then 2 more will make 5, 6. So I'll go ahead and put that as a group. And then I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. I'm going to take one of these and make that 5, 6 right there. And then look at that. This last one is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So now we can double check that each of these groups really is 5, 6. So here's 1, 6, 2, 6, 3, 6, 4, 6, 5, 6. 1, 6, 2, 6, 3, 6, 4, 6, 5, 6. 1, 6, 2, 6, 3, 6, 4/6, 5/6, 1/6, 2/6, 3/6, 4/6, 5/6, 1/6, 2/6, 3/6, 4/6, 5/6, 1/6, 2/6, 3/6, 4/6, 5/6. So I've confirmed that all of these are groups of 5/6. So now I will ask you, how many groups of 5/6 are there in 5? Go ahead and answer. Write it down if you know it. You can clear your tiles. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There are 6 groups of 5/6 in 5. So I'm going to write that right here. There were 6 groups of 5/6 in 5. Alright, for this last problem, it is more challenging just like the last one. This problem is also challenging. It's having us look at things with a different kind of perspective, but I do want you to attempt it on your own. All of these problems we should have attempted on our own. Whenever you're ready, I'll go ahead and begin. You can unpause the video. We have 4 divided by 4/3. So all of these have been proper fractions. This is our first improper fraction. However, we're going to do it the exact same way. First, we're going to say what it means. We're asking, how many groups of 4/3 are in 4? So from this point, if you haven't paused the video yet, please pause the video and attempt it. We have 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's my model of 4. Oh, we can't see one of those. I'm going to move that one here. Alright, so as you can see, I have 4 holes. So I have 4 right there. What do you think I'm going to trade these out for? I'm looking for groups of 4/3. Which piece was my 1/3 piece? If you thought it was my blue rhombus piece, then good job. You can give yourself a high five. I'm going to go ahead and make the exchange right now. So it takes 3/3 to make one hole. So I'm going to go ahead and change out, oops, this for one of mine. So there's 1. And then again, 3/3 to make one hole. So I'm going to change out this one for another group of thirds. And then I'm going to change out this one for, you might have guessed it, another group of thirds. Pause the video if I'm changing out pieces too quickly and you need to gather your pieces, that's fine. Take your time. And now I'm going to switch out my final piece for 3/3. So I'm switching that out for 3/3 because it does take 3/3 to make a hole. So here we have 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to make them into groups of 4/3. Go ahead and try to make them into groups of 4/3. Pause the video. Alright, groups we should have made are as follows. So we have 1, 2, 3/3. Here's 4/3. So there's one group of 4/3 right there. Let me keep it in view. One group of 4/3 right there. I'll straighten it up. And then we have 1, 2, 3, 4. So here's another group of 4/3. Then we have 1, 2, 3. One more group of 4/3. So you should have gotten how many groups of 4/3? We should have gotten 3 groups of 4/3. Oh, whoops. Go ahead and correct this on your paper. That says 2. I'll probably have corrected this by the time you watch this video. I'm going to go back and correct that before I print them. This should have said 4 divided by 4/3, not 2 divided by 4/3. Alright, and we do get 3 groups, and we can count them. 1/3, 2/3, 3/3, 4/3. 1/3, 2/3, 3/3, 4/3. 1, 2, 3, 4/3.